Oh yeah, amazing music playing for you here on your number one station, RX Radio. Fatboy here, and this is the Fatboy Show. How are you doing today? Are you feeling good on this Wednesday morning? If so, well, good for you. I guess if your name is Paul Kagame and you happen to be the president of Rwanda, you are right now super feeling good. Why? Because you won your presidential election with a whopping, outstanding, unbelievable landslide. I mean, typically, if you win an election with 70%, 75%, that's usually as far as a landslide typically goes in most democratic nations, and that's if even you're lucky. Even 55%, someone will say, oh, that's a landslide. But my friend, you get 99% of the vote. 99%. It's like literally the whole country voted for you. Who is this 1% that didn't vote for you, man? It's like this must just be some, I don't know, ballots which maybe were not signed in properly, or maybe ballots that didn't have names on them. Because you pretty much swept the house clean, man. 99%, and to be accurate, it's 99.15% of the vote that Paul Kagame is presumed to have won in the just concluded Rwandan presidential elections. That's a lot of votes, man. That's like literally the whole country. Yeah. Were there any opposition candidates running in Rwanda? Apparently there were, because you'd think if you're getting 99.15%, you're probably the only candidate, because surely, how can it be that if there are other candidates that no one's voting for them? Well, in Rwanda, that tends to be the case. Even though apparently there were other candidates in this presidential race. There were two other candidates who no one knows about, and I don't think anyone cares about. One of them being Frank Habineza, who managed to gather a whopping 0.53% of the total tally. And then Philippe Mpayimana, who got 0.32% of the vote. All right, so that's like... these votes are literally non-existent, because combined it doesn't even come to 1% between these two. So Paul Kagame is essentially the main man in Rwanda. The entire country seems to love him, which of course begs the question, do they really? And Timothy Kalegira, our good friend Timothy Kalegira, compiled a list of election results from other countries where the total tally was either 99% or close to. And Paul Kagame obviously appears on that list now. But interestingly, he is in the company of very interesting figures that you might find not so coincidental. So, at number 6, you have Bashar al-Assad, the president of Syria, who in 2007 managed to get 97.6% of the vote. And then at number 5, now you have Paul Kagame of Rwanda at 99.15% in the recent elections. And then you have the president of Turkmenistan, a guy called Sapuramat Niyazov, who won with 99.5%. This is back in 1992. And then Raul Castro, the leader of Cuba, brother of the late Fidel Castro, got 99.4% of the vote when they went to elections in 2008. And then at number 2, we have our good friend Saddam Hussein, former president of Iraq, who in 2002, an election was held. He managed to garner 100% of the vote of the country. Also, at 100% of the total tally of his country is at number 1, Kim Jong-un of North Korea. This is back in 2014. So what do all these people have in common, you ask? Let's see. Bashar al-Assad, Raul Castro, Saddam Hussein, Kim Jong-un, These are leaders who some people might call dictators. I don't know. People who've been in power like forever and ever and ever, who are running totalitarian autocracies where there's no free speech, no free political activity, there's suppression of dissident political voices, arrest of journalists, the usual, right? As you would expect in a place like Iraq during the reign of Saddam Hussein, or in North Korea where, hey, my friend, don't they even execute you for listening to K-pop music over there? So, our good friend Paul Kagame is in good company, wouldn't you agree? So I don't know if he'd even feel proud to declare that he won 99% of the vote, because wouldn't he just be laughed out of the room if he were to appear in, like let's say at a global conference, United Nations, African Union, and he said, I'm so popular, I won 99.9% of the vote. I think the whole room, the whole conference room will just erupt in laughter, because everyone will know exactly why he got 99% of the vote. And it probably wasn't because there were free and fair elections held in that country. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's no secret that, Paul Kagame, runs Rwanda with an iron fist of sorts, Rwanda is one of those countries where people don't play games. You don't mess around. You say the wrong thing and strange things might happen to you. So, for all intents and purposes, Rwanda is a dictatorship. And this is the problem with countries that may purport to have elections. See, these leaders, when asked about their brutality or their totalitarian tendencies, they will frequently say that they were elected by the people, that they live in a free and democratic country where elections are held, and that they are so legitimate because they got almost 100% of the vote, and thus they have the popular mandate. So there's no need for any foreigner to tell him what to do, because the people of his country are behind him, etc, right? 99.15%. So, what's happening in Rwanda? Are opposition candidates protesting and saying there was rigging, as is the case in Uganda? For all the things people say that's wrong about Uganda, at least here in Uganda, if you're like opposition, you can make noise, at least some noise. Yeah? And typically after an election, almost no opposition candidate concedes. They all say there was rigging and all this kind of stuff. And sometimes it goes to court. And sometimes it's even proven that there were irregularities, but that doesn't change anything. So what did the opposition in Rwanda say in response to these results? Well, candidate Habineza of the Democratic Green Party said that we accept the results and congratulate the winner, His Excellency Paul Kagame. Independent candidate Philip Paimana, who got 0.3% of the vote, he has also conceded. And in as far as voter turnout in Rwanda goes, apparently they had 98% voter turnout. 98%. That is phenomenally high. Is it that people in Rwanda just have so much time on their hands that 98% of registered voters would have the time to go vote? Because in many countries in the world, there's a lot of voter apathy, as in, first of all, few people would even register to vote. And of those who have registered to vote, even fewer will actually go and cast their vote, because most people are cynical. They don't think voting makes a difference. And if you're living in a country like Rwanda, of course, you'd have no reason to think otherwise. How could voting possibly make a difference? But they voted anyway. 98% of them. And of those 98% of registered voters that voted, 99% of those votes went to Paul Kagame. He has won every election since 2003, by the way. Every single one, with more than 95% of the vote each time. I don't know about you, but to me, if you have an open democratic system and you have leaders who are winning with 90% plus, it just shows me that there is something wrong about that country. It means that, you see, and this is the trick that they play. Yeah, on paper, it's true, you have conducted elections and people may have voted, and indeed, people may have voted you in the majority. By the way, I don't even doubt that the majority of the votes went to Kagame, so I wouldn't be among those who would say there was rigging. Rwanda has a different problem. Rwanda's problem is that there's just no freedom to participate in political activity. No one would dare stand against Kagame out of fear of whatever they believe might happen to him, as has happened to other potential political figures. The Hotel Rwanda guy, didn't he run for president at some point? And what did they do? Didn't they charge him with terrorism? The guy whose film, Hotel Rwanda, the film about him, won an Oscar because it was such a compelling story of a man of the Hutu tribe who was saving Tutsis at great, putting his life in jeopardy. I mean, that was an honorable thing to do. So he decides to become a statesman, run for president, and he got into all kinds of trouble. Now he's accused of being a terrorist by the Kagame regime. I don't know, was he arrested or is he in exile? And then there was a lady Also, I forget her name, but she was sent to jail, some opposition figure. So then, what signal would such events send to potential political actors in Rwanda? They'd all be like, yo, I ain't trying to ruin my life, so I'm not gonna stick my head out too far and catch the ire of Kagame. So I'm just gonna lay low and keep to myself. And so for the voting public in Rwanda, they look around and they're like, okay, so who's there? Who are the people standing up and saying they want to lead? And then there's just nobody, because everyone's been intimidated into not doing so. And so you're left with no choices except the one candidate who is standing, and then maybe a token independent candidate who no one knows, or two other candidates. The second candidate belonged to some political party, but with less than 0.5% of the vote. Are you even a party worth mentioning? No. So, but who am I to say this is wrong for Rwanda? My only problem is this, that we in Africa and in the developing world, the third world, how about we just cease with all pretenses of democracy? Like, let's just stop pretending that we're doing this democracy thing, and let's just agree that we're doing monarchies and we're doing autocracies, all right? And then that we have kings and we have emperors who want to rule forever and ever and ever and ever, who don't want to give anyone freedom. If it were that straightforward, everyone would get with the program, right? And those who don't get with the program, well, what would a king do in such a circumstance? You'd, of course, eliminate all those. So you end up with a country with everyone on the same page, and you're not wasting money and time pretending to conduct free and fair democratic elections. Like, you don't even bother with the facade, because at this point it almost feels like an insult to our collective intelligence to try to convince us that this 99.15% tally that you gathered in the election is legitimate, or at least is the product of a free and fair and open process. It is absolutely not. Now, what does this have to do with me, a Ugandan? Should we as Ugandans be concerned about this? Do we have stick in the game? Does it matter to us that Paul Kagame is the presumptive winner in the recent elections? I guess it means business as usual, right? Nothing has really changed. And in as far as our relations with Rwanda, it seems like they're being normalized. Didn't they recently reopen the border? And the Rwandese and the Ugandans, we typically get along, so maybe it doesn't even really matter that, at least from a Uganda perspective and our strategic interests, perhaps it makes no difference that Paul Kagame has won again. Anyway, we have our own problems to deal with, right? Meanwhile, we'll be turning our attention to events unfolding in Kenya. That'll be coming up ahead on the Fatboy Show, so do stick around for that. Otherwise, more great music continues. Don't go anywhere.